A Karen accused me of being a pervert just for standing near the women's fitting room, waiting for my wife, but now the entire courtroom applauds as we win the lawsuit against her. I'm writing this from a dark corner of my living room with a legal pad full of my lawyer's notes beside me, and all I did was wait for my wife, nothing more. We were at an upscale mall in our city. My wife wanted to try on some dresses in a boutique near the food court on the second level. I don't even remember the name, just that it had very bright white lighting. She went in and I followed, but when she grabbed a couple of hangers and went into the fitting room, I stayed outside. I didn't want to be that guy just standing around staring, so I positioned myself just outside the fitting area, not even directly in front. I stood off to the side, checking my phone. About 10 minutes passed. I wasn't looking at anyone, but I guess just being a man near a women's fitting room is enough for someone to imagine the worst, because suddenly this woman, maybe in her mid-30s, approached me angrily and started yelling. She asked me what I was doing there, and before I could even answer, she cut me off saying things like, "I saw you watching, don't pretend you weren't spying." I tried to explain that I was just waiting for my wife, but she didn't care. Instead, she called over an employee and said, "There's a man harassing women in the fitting room area." That's when everything spiraled out of control. The store manager showed up, a guy with an arrogant attitude. He didn't even address me at first. He spoke to the woman, nodded, and said, "We take this very seriously." Then he told me I needed to leave the store. I told him I was waiting for my wife. I even started calling her so she could come out, but he insisted I leave immediately or he would call security. I told him I wasn't doing anything wrong, that my wife was inside the fitting room. He kept repeating himself like a broken record. Eventually, a security guard showed up. Then two more. They told me I was making customers uncomfortable and asked me to leave the store. Then they escorted me out of the mall, not just the store, the entire mall. I kept asking what I had done wrong, and they said I had made others feel uncomfortable. I asked them to check the cameras. I told them I had nothing to hide. One of them replied, "We don't make those decisions, sir. You'll have to speak with management." I stood outside the mall for 20 minutes, waiting for my wife, who had no idea what had happened. She thought I had gone to grab a coffee or something. When I told her, she didn't even believe me at first. She said, "They really kicked you out just for waiting." Yes, they kicked me out. And that was only the beginning. 2 days later, I received an email from the mall's management, an official notice stating that I was banned from entering for 90 days. They got my contact information when I wrote to complain about what had happened. They classified it as a conduct violation and said I had been seen loitering near a private area in a way that made customers uncomfortable. I was furious. I replied demanding they retract the accusation and review the security footage. No response. So I called them, left messages, sent another email. Nothing. Then my wife, who is much more assertive than I am, went back to the store pretending she was going to shop and asked to speak with the manager. She recorded the conversation on her phone, and you won't believe what that guy said. He confidently told her that I had been caught trying to take a photo under the fitting room door. That's the kind of accusation that can permanently ruin someone's life. He probably just said it to cover himself for what they did. I contacted a lawyer. He told me I had a case for defamation and possibly more if we could prove emotional distress or damage to my reputation, since I was escorted out in front of everyone. He filed a formal request to obtain the footage from that day. Guess what happened? No response. They claimed the footage wasn't available due to technical issues. It had simply disappeared from one of the busiest stores in the mall on a Saturday, the exact same day they were accusing me of recording women. My lawyer explained that they were trying to stonewall me, hoping I'd just let it go, but I didn't. I fought back. I filed a formal lawsuit against the store and the manager individually for defamation. I also filed a complaint with the Business Ethics Office. I even posted about the situation on a local forum. That post was removed for targeted harassment. What a surprise. We're still waiting for a court date. My lawyer says we have a strong case, but honestly, I don't even care about the money anymore. I just want to clear my name because no matter how this ends, that lie is already out there. Update 1. My lawyer managed to get in touch with a former employee of the boutique. I won't mention names, but let's call her C. She sent me a private message after seeing my story circulating in a local Facebook group. Someone took a screenshot and reposted it. I guess it's spreading. C told us that she was working in the store that day. She clearly remembered that I stayed still the entire time, not looking at anyone or anything, just at my phone. She also mentioned, and get ready for this, that the woman who accused me had caused problems before. Apparently, she's known for exaggerating or even fabricating harassment situations to get discounts or attention. At one point, she claimed a 17-year-old cashier mocked her weight just because he didn't greet her quickly enough. On another occasion, she accused a father shopping with his teenage daughter of staring at her, when in reality, he was just looking for a dress size. The store manager already knew about her reputation, told us that after everything happened, She overheard the manager bragging about how quickly he handled the situation, saying, "These days we can't take risks, even if the guy is just confused." He told the staff not to talk about the incident and that if anyone asked, they should stick to the official version from management. The manager knew the accuser wasn't reliable. He knew I wasn't doing anything wrong, but he still had me removed and built a story because it was easier to blame me than admit his mistake. He said he didn't want to risk people thinking they didn't take those kinds of complaints seriously. We managed to get her to agree to sign a sworn affidavit. My lawyer says this is the kind of evidence that can define the entire case. It proves that a key person lied and that the store had prior knowledge that the accuser was problematic. It also shows an attempt to cover up the truth. At that point, it's no longer just defamation, it's negligence with intent. I wanted to go all in, but I had to stay strategic, calm, and precise. So I filed for an emergency subpoena to obtain the store's internal incident reports, hoping to capture the manager's original statements before they could be altered. If there's any contradiction between what they said then and what they're claiming now, that's even more evidence for the case. And there's more, the mall's security cameras. Before, they told me the store's footage wasn't available, but I never asked about the mall's cameras, which cover the hallways outside the store. My lawyer sent a request, and guess what? They do have footage. It shows me standing in front of the fitting room area, looking at my phone for over 15 minutes, like a man waiting for his wife, which is exactly what I was doing. We're filing a motion to officially obtain that video and add it to the case, and just when I thought this couldn't get any more ridiculous, I got a call from corporate. The national chain that owns the boutique finally reached out through their legal team. They said they wanted to discuss an amicable resolution, which we all know is basically them saying, please don't expose us publicly. I told them they could start with a public retraction and a formal apology for the false statements made by their employee. I want a statement that clears my name, not just a quiet settlement, not just money to keep me silent. They hesitated, but I made it clear I wasn't backing down. We're also filing a lawsuit against the woman who started all of this. We may even be able to find other people she has falsely accused thanks to the information C gave us, and that could seriously strengthen our case and finally put an end to her lies. Update 2. We went to court, and the manager finally faced the consequences. I woke up at 4:30 a.m. that day. I didn't even need an alarm. I was too nervous. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. We arrived early. My lawyer was already outside. That man is incredible. The boutique's corporate lawyer was there too, a small, well-dressed guy with an expensive briefcase and an arrogant attitude. He had that look of someone who knows he's about to lie and is already rehearsing how to justify it. He tried to avoid making eye contact with me, but you know who didn't? The manager. He looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was the setting. Maybe it was the fact that he was finally being forced to face the consequences of the lie he had told so easily. Here's how it went down. The judge opened the session. My lawyer began by presenting the facts. He explained how I was falsely accused, how the store manager claimed I had been caught trying to record under the fitting room door, and how no video evidence was ever produced. Then he dropped the key point: the mall's security footage. He played the video on full screen with the timestamp visible, showing me doing absolutely nothing, just standing there looking at my phone, occasionally shifting my weight from one foot to the other. At one point, I even leaned against the wall for a few seconds. Then my lawyer presented C's sworn affidavit. He explained who she was, an eyewitness and former boutique employee, and read her testimony out loud, including the parts about the woman's history of false accusations and how the manager instructed staff to stay silent and stick to the official version. Then it was the manager's turn. He tried to justify himself. He said he acted based on a customer complaint, that he couldn't take risks, and that he never intended to suggest anything criminal, which of course directly contradicted the written statement he had given to mall security and the store's internal incident report. We had both documents in hand, and in both, the term voyeuristic behavior appeared. Yes, he had officially labeled me a voyeur. My lawyer cross-examined him. He asked him directly if he had seen me take any photos. He said no. He asked if he had reviewed any footage before making the accusation. He admitted he had not. He asked if he was aware of the accuser's previous false reports. He replied, "That's not something I can confirm," which is interesting because our witness had already confirmed it under oath. At that point, the manager looked like he wanted to disappear. The judge called for a short recess after that. When we came back, the boutique's legal representative requested a private settlement. They didn't even want to continue. They knew they were clearly losing. They offered to settle the defamation lawsuit right then and there with full payment, a confidentiality agreement, and a statement of exoneration. But that's when I stood my ground. I told them, there will be no confidentiality agreement. I didn't want money to stay silent. I didn't want silence at all. I wanted an official record. I wanted this to follow the manager even into future job interviews. I wanted it on record that he fabricated an accusation of sexual misconduct against a completely innocent man. I looked the lawyer straight in the eyes and said, I want it in writing that I did nothing wrong, and I want your company to sign it. The final outcome, the boutique chain agreed to pay damages. I won't mention the amount, but let's just say it covered my legal fees and then some. They published a formal apology on their corporate website and social media, acknowledging the false accusation, clearing my name, and confirming that I did not engage in any inappropriate conduct. The manager was fired the following week. The mall's management offered me a private apology and lifted the ban. I told them to keep it. I have no intention of ever going back there. But then an envelope appeared taped to my front door. Inside was a single printed sheet that said, "Enjoy your victory, but don't get too comfortable. People don't forget the first thing they hear." I had a pretty good idea who might be behind it. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I also wasn't going to let anyone walk over me again. So I filed a police report for harassment. I handed them the note, the envelope, even the footage from my doorbell camera, which unfortunately didn't capture a face, just someone in a hoodie approaching my porch around 2:40 a.m. Days later, my workplace received an email claiming that I was known to loiter around underage girls. The IT department forwarded it to legal and to my boss. My company knows everything I've been through lately, and both my boss and the legal team are fully backing me. This was clearly retaliation, an adult throwing a tantrum because his lies cost him his job, and now he was trying to drag me down with him. My lawyer told me he was already looking into the manager. Apparently, this wasn't the first time he'd had issues. It turns out he had been quietly let go from 2 previous malls for undisclosed misconduct. That's basically corporate language for we don't want lawsuits. So we filed for a temporary restraining order, then we initiated a new civil lawsuit for harassment, continued defamation, and other legal claims, the full package. We had him served at his new job, which was no coincidence. He now works at a furniture store 2 towns over. He went from being a manager at a boutique in a major mall to selling discounted couches at a liquidation store. And yeah, I know what some people are thinking. Why keep going? Because this is the reality. Cowardice needs consequences. This man didn't just lie. He lied in a way that fed fear, exploited a sensitive issue, and could have permanently labeled me as a predator. And as if that weren't enough, he's still trying to harass me. So I'm not going to stop just because his actions don't carry the same weight anymore. So yes, I'm going after him, and I'm going to show him he picked the wrong person. I've already gone through the humiliation of being escorted out of a mall by security guards. I've already had to explain to my son why his dad went to court over something he didn't do. Now, I'm going to make sure he goes through the same thing, but 10 times worse. I could have stayed quiet, accepted his new reality, and moved on, but if he's bitter because his own incompetence cost him a good job, that's not my problem. I know this means starting another legal process, and that's never pleasant. But for him, it'll be much worse, and that's what matters. When my lawyer is done with this, he's going to think, I should have never done that. On another note, because a lot of people have asked, we're finalizing the case against the woman who started all of this. We've already found more people affected by her, and we're about to file a class action lawsuit against her as well. I'm going to be pretty busy with my lawyer over the next few months, but if it helps hold these 2 idiots accountable, so be it. Update 3. He showed up at my son's school. I guess when you strip a narcissist of their public image and destroy the power they built on lies, they go into survival mode. And for someone like that, survival means revenge. Here's what happened. Last Tuesday, I got a call from the school office during lunchtime. They never call unless my son is sick or there's an emergency. The secretary told me there's someone here trying to pick up your son. He says he's his cousin. I asked for a description and she gave me this guy's features. I immediately told her under no circumstances should they release my son to anyone and to call the police right away. But the school had already done that. They were just informing me. The man left as soon as they told him he wasn't authorized and that he wasn't on the approved pickup list. We filed a police report on the spot, obtained the security footage from the office cameras, and it confirmed it was him. The school now has his photo on file. My son's teacher has been informed. The principal personally assured me that if this man sets foot on the same block, they'll initiate a lockdown protocol. It's very likely he'll have to wait for trial in jail because with everything he's done, he can't remain free. My lawyer is working to have the judge order his immediate detention. I'd feel safer knowing he's behind bars instead of looking for new ways to intimidate me, although in a way that would also take away the chance of facing him directly where the last thing I'd do is talk. Changing the subject. The lawsuit against the woman has already been filed, and among all the plaintiffs, we believe we can hit her financially in a significant way for her lies. That process may move more slowly, but it's important to follow through. She can't walk away without consequences. She started all of this, and she has to be held accountable too. Update 4, he's in jail. Let me repeat that. He's in jail. Let me tell you how it all ended. After he showed up at my son's school, the police escalated the situation. They took the attempt to impersonate a relative very seriously, even without physical contact. Combined with the previous incidents, which were already concerning, it was enough to detain him and trigger an emergency hearing. We went back to court 2 weeks ago. His defense for what happened at the school was that he was just trying to apologize in person, that he wanted closure, that it had all been a misunderstanding. He said that since he couldn't contact me directly, he was just trying to find a way to do so, but the prosecutor didn't care about any of that and kept pushing for a conviction. And he did a great job, I have to admit it, because he got exactly what we wanted. This man being locked up and held accountable for everything he did. The list of charges he was found guilty of is long. He was charged with harassment, criminal stalking, impersonation with intent to commit fraud, attempted unlawful contact with a minor, and violation of a restraining order. Of course, he pleaded not guilty, but it didn't work. Not after all the evidence. Not after the prosecutor completely dismantled him during the trial. The judge didn't hold back. He said the man showed complete disregard for legal boundaries and actively tried to intimidate and humiliate a citizen and his family out of personal revenge. He was sentenced to 8 years, 7 to be served in prison, 1 on probation with mandatory psychological evaluation, and an extended no-contact order indefinitely. He was also fined. And let me tell you, watching them put handcuffs on him and escort him out of the courtroom, it felt like justice. We were very satisfied with the verdict, especially considering our expectations. We were only expecting probation, a small fine, and not much more, but he ended up receiving an exemplary sentence given the charges he faced. After the hearing, the prosecutor told me something I'll never forget. He said, "Most people break when they're falsely accused. You didn't. You stood up and brought the truth to light." I told him it was the right thing to do, and I thanked him for supporting me throughout the entire process. At the same time, we're still working on the case against the woman who accused me that day. We're still far from a verdict, but we're moving as fast as possible. She hasn't tried to reach a private settlement yet, which would honestly be the smartest move for her. Things are not looking good for her, but at this point, it doesn't matter. One way or another, she's going to have to pay. Even if she considers herself innocent and tries to justify that she did what she thought was right at the time. I hope to give another update, and hopefully it'll be just as good as this one, where the person responsible faces consequences that truly affect them, but I don't expect it to be soon or easy. At this point, I don't expect anything to be easy anymore. Let me tell you. The trial against that woman was absolute chaos. The courtroom was packed with people who couldn't stand her. There were neighbors, and even coworkers who despised her so much so that they actually celebrated when the verdict was read. I was able to talk to some of them, and the stories about what this woman had done were truly disturbing. Over the years, she had made a lot of enemies, and everyone was waiting to see her lose. And with our class action lawsuit, we achieved a decisive victory for several $1,000s, something that was celebrated by everyone. I think even the court reporter seemed to enjoy it, although maybe it was just the overall atmosphere as people reacted, and the judge called for order in the courtroom. It wouldn't be surprising, especially considering that even during the trial, she showed a pretty arrogant attitude. There was a moment on one of the days when the hearing ran longer than expected. We had started late, and there were multiple interruptions. She had a hair appointment and kept interrupting her lawyer to remind him that she needed to leave soon, which only made things worse. It was as if she thought all of this was a game, and that being somewhere else was more important. And she probably did if she truly believed she had always acted correctly by making false accusations, as if she were doing the community a favor and then got offended when questioned. That's why it was worth seeing her expression when they read what she would have to pay. She truly didn't expect it, and she seemed to think we were just wasting her time. But that wasn't the case, and that day the judge made a lot of people very happy, all at once. Now, it's time to enjoy life and stay away from any courtroom for a long, long time. I think throughout this entire process, I've seen more of my lawyer than my own wife. That's probably not true, but it definitely felt that way.